Hey math magicians, wanted to go over some math properties. I know that sometimes math properties seems very easy, but oftentimes these show up on academic team quick recall matches, and they also show up a lot on tests, and we often forget them. So I wanted to go over them in detail so that you had them so that you would never forget them. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first property, we're going to go over quite a few of them really quickly, so you need to write these down, write all of them down, and then also I want you to write down how you're going to remember them. So properties of real numbers, we have the first one, the commutative property. We have the commutative property of addition and the commutative property of multiplication. The commutative property of addition tells you that a plus b equals b plus a. You can switch the order in which you add something and it doesn't change its value. So like 7 plus 1 equals 1 plus 7. The commutative property of multiplication does the same thing except we're multiplying. A times b equals b times a. The order in which you do it, it doesn't matter which order you do it, it's going to give you still the same answer. 3 plus 7 equals 7 plus, or 3 times 7 equals 7 times 3. 3 times 7 is 21. 7 times 3 is 21. Go ahead and write that down and then come back when you are ready to move on to the associative property. The next one is the associative property of addition and multiplication. The associative property of addition says that the order in which they are grouped, this one's got the parentheses involved, it's the groupings. The order in which they are grouped doesn't matter as long as it's all addition or all multiplication. So you could have a plus b plus c, where b and c are added together first, or you could have a plus b plus c, where a and b are added together first, and you're still going to get the same value. Same thing with multiplication. A times b times c, where multiplying b and c together first is going to give the same exact value as multiplying a plus b first and then timesing it by c. Write this down. Write down how you're going to remember this. I remember commutative by using the word commute. I commute to work each day and I come back home, and it's the same amount of, it's the same on my odometer, like same mileage, no matter which direction I go, whether I go to Spencer County Middle School or I come home from Spencer County Middle School, it's the same. So I think of commutative as a commute. I think of associative as who they associate with. In this part right here, b plus c is associating with each other, whereas a plus b is associating with each other here. So that's how I keep the difference between commutative and associative. Write this down and make sure that you come back when you're ready to move on to the next one. The next one is the distributive property. We've got the distributive property, and it's between both addition and multiplication because it involves both addition and multiplication. It's the distributive property of addition and multiplication. Actually, it's just called the distributive property. But what this says is, in this particular problem here, a times the sum of b plus c, because of the order operations, you would multiply b plus c together first, and then you would multiply by a. But it says that if you have this, you can multiply a times b plus a times c, and it would give you the same amount. Try it with some numbers. Plug in like 3, 4, and 5, and see if 3 times 4 plus 3 times 5 will give you the same exact value. And it does every time. Write down how you're going to remember the distributive property. I think of distribute like you're distributing something. So I'm distributing the A to the B and the A to the C. I used to call it the mailman property because the mailman distributes the mail. So in this case, A would be the mailman who would distribute the mail to everybody in the group. The next one is the identity property. The identity property of addition is A plus 0 equals A. The identity property for multiplication is A times 1 equals A. The way I remember identity property is how it keeps its identity. When you add 0, A keeps its identity. When you times it by 1, A keeps its identity. It's how it keeps its identity. Make sure you write this down and how you're going to remember it. The next one is inverse property. The inverse property of addition is A plus negative A equals 0. The inverse property of multiplication is A times 1 over A equals 1. In this particular case, you're doing the opposite. So the opposite of A would be negative A when we're adding them together. But then, like, let's say A was 2. 2 plus negative 2 would be 0. If A is 2 over here, 2 plus 1 over 2, which is 1/2, 2 times, I said plus, I meant times. 2 times 1/2 equals 1. So that's the inverse property of addition and the inverse property of multiplication. And we've got one more that doesn't always come up, but I still feel like it's very important. It's the addition and multiplication properties of equality. You see this when you're doing algebra. The properties of equality tells you what you do to one side of the equation, you do to the other side, and that is in order to keep them equal. So if you add to one side of the equation, you must add to the other side. If you multiply to one side of the equation, you must multiply to the other side. Same thing with division and subtraction. They do the same thing. If you divide on one side, you must divide on the other side. So hopefully this helped you. We're going to go over a couple of examples and you're going to have a chance to try it out. And then when we get into more videos, we're going to dig deeper into each one of these properties. So let's look at this first one. If you multiply each side of an equation by the same non-zero number, the two sides remain equal. So we've got dividing by 3, and they're going to multiply both sides by 3. And when you multiply both sides by 3, those 3's cancel out because 3 divided by 3 leaves me with just 1x. And then if you have 21 and you times it by 3, 21 times 3 equals 63. This is the same every time. So if you do it to the one side, you do it to the other side. This is the multiplication property of equality. That's what we were talking about just a couple seconds ago. All right, the next one. Let's see if you know this one. 5 times 1/5 equals 1. Or 2/5 times 5/2 equals 1. What is it? It is the multiplicative inverse or the inverse property of multiplication. You'll hear it both ways. The next one, the way in which numbers are grouped when multiplied does not change the product. So you've got that A times B times C, where A and B is in parentheses and B and C is parentheses. Same thing here, 5 times 7 times 3, 5 times 7 times 3, but this time we're multiplying the 5 times 7 first and getting the 35. But over here we're multiplying the 7 times 3 first and getting 21. But we still get 105 no matter what we do. This one is what property? It is the associative property of multiplication. Don't forget, it's the associative property of multiplication. If you just said associative and you didn't say multiplication, in a match, you would get that wrong because there is associative property of addition as well. All right, next one. The way in which numbers are grouped when added does not change the sum. It's kind of a similar example, but this time we're dealing with addition. 5 plus 7 is 12. 7 plus 3 is 10. But then when we add them all together in the end, we get the same exact answer. So what is it? This is the associative property of addition. All right, let's go to the next one. If you add the same number to each side of the equation, the two sides will remain equal. So we're adding a 6 here, adding a 6. We're going to keep the sides the same. If we add 6 here, 14 plus 6 equals 20. And so then 5x would equal 20. And so when we do it to one side, we would do it to the other. And remember that property is called what? Addition property of equality. All right, let's go to the next one. This one combines addition and multiplication. To multiply a number by a sum, multiply each number inside the parentheses by the number outside of the parentheses. So A times B plus A times C. What property is this? Hopefully you're thinking the distributive property. Next one. The order in which numbers are added does not change the sum. Example, A plus B equals B plus A, or 3 plus 2 equals 2 plus 3. What is it? This is the commutative property of addition, or commutative of addition. Next one, when 0 is added to any number, the sum is that number. Example, A plus 0 equals A. It must keep its identity. 3 plus 0 is 3. 0 plus 91 is 91. What property is this? This one is the identity property of addition. I should write that on there. Write that down. Identity property of, or actually additive identity. Additive identity is on there. Or identity property of addition. Ooh, I get myself confused here. All right, the next one. The order in which numbers are multiplied does not change the product. A times B equals B times A, or 4 times 3 equals 3 times 4. Order, which one is it? It is the commutative property of multiplication. Next one. When any number is multiplied by 1, the product, no, that's wrong. The product is not 1. With any number is multiplied by 1, let's fix that. When any number is multiplied by 1, let's fix that one. The product is that number. The product is that number. So any number is multiplied by 1, the product is that number. A times 1 equals A, or 8 times 1 equals 8. Hopefully you have a chance to get that right while I was fixing it on my end. And the correct answer is multiplicative identity, or identity property of multiplication. And usually you're going to hear it said the identity property of multiplication, but you also can hear it as multiplicative identity. All right, let me erase, because I didn't want that to be wrong. All right, next one. Example, -6 plus 6 equals 0. -5 plus 5 equals 0. What is it? This one is additive inverse, or we call it the inverse property of addition. And we did great. Hopefully you did as great as I did on this one. Go back and study these. Like I said, I know they kind of seem a little easy. However, sometimes when things seem easy, we feel like we don't need to study it. And then we mess up on the simple ones. And I have seen hundreds of academic team tests, and the questions 1 through 5, almost every single one of them deal with the properties. Like most of them deal with them. And I'm like, those are easy ones, but we can totally get. So make sure you hold on to this, practice. Of the other videos, we're going to go deeper into each one of the properties. Have a great day.